Hi, my name is Christy, and I'm a boundaries and resiliency coach. Join me for this series on emotional hygiene. On this episode, we're discussing how to practice safe emotional intimacy. So join me. Let's get into it. Uh, so, last episode, we touched on kind of green flags, yellow flags, red flags. And in this episode, I think it's important to focus in on when we do find friendships that we can lean into where we are compatible, uh, how to practice safe emotional intimacy where we can honor ourselves and honor the other person. Um, when you think of a friendship, essentially it's broken down into agreements. If I call you up and say, hey, let's go to the movies, I'm proposing the agreement of let's go see a movie, and you get to either consent or decline that agreement to go see the movie, right? So we both have an expectation set that if you do agree and you consent to this agreement of going to seeing a movie, we now have informed consent on both sides with the intention to go see this movie, right? So when we break things down in friendship, it all comes down to building agreements. In emotional intimacy, that can look like encouragement. Maybe we're feeling low, maybe we're feeling maybe we just applied to a new job and we need a little pep talk, or, we're going through a difficult time. And encouragement is definitely needed in life. We need our people. Um, I love the African proverb uh, if you want to go fast, go it alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that that's a true testament to the purpose of community. Uh, when emotional support is needed, informed consent can help foster a safe environment for that level of intimacy where both people can engage responsibly and comfortably, where we both consent to the purpose of that time and space being shared. So that could look like, hey, you, I could really use some encouragement right now. I could really use a friend's advice, and I trust your judgment. Um, do you have any time at some point this week where you have the time and space to have that kind of conversation? I trust your judgment, and I'm curious to hear any insight you might have on how I could better navigate this situation that I'm in. And that breaking that down, I'm telling you the intention of the phone call or the meetup. I'm telling you the purpose of the meetup. It's asking advice. The responsibility of the burden is on me. It's my burden to carry. I'm asking for advice or any insight. It could be a legal problem. It could be, whatever the purpose is, where that person maybe has a level of expertise that I don't have, and I'd love to learn any new insight they could have that I could benefit from. Uh, and I leave the day, the time, and the amount of time dedicated up to the other person. Um, so so they feel emotionally prepared, equipped, and they can schedule it on a day where they have capacity to offer and dedicate that time and space. Uh, by doing it that way, you honor the autonomy of both people. I get my needs taken care of where I'm in a pickle and I need advice. I need encouragement. It's okay to have needs, right? It's it's not okay to obligate people. Like again, friendship comes down to informed consent. We're building agreements. We're both agreeing to how the time and the space is being used. And if I were to call you and dump my problem on you, uh, you could be picking up the phone expecting a nice meetup where we're catching up with each other. And now I'm complaining about this particular problem and really putting a drag on you when you have a business meeting that you have to get to in 15 minutes and you don't have the capacity to take this on right now. Um, it could be a real detriment to you. And then that breaks trust. Because now the next time you pick up the phone, you're not going to know if I'm going to be burdening you with another problem or if it's going to be a nice catch up. Or maybe, maybe the last time we talked, I told you about a funny book or a movie or a fun adventure I went on. It creates inconsistency in it. It's a level of support that you may not have consented to. And when I can ask informed consent of you, you can then have the choice of saying, life is a little lifey right now, and I don't have capacity to commit to something to that like that this week. Um, but our mutual friend is an expertise in that, or have you tried, pursuing this, that, or the other, right? Because you're not obligated to me. You're not obligated to help me. It's my responsibility to take care of me. Um, and your time is for you to choose how to use it. And you know what your needs levels are, you know what your capacity is. I prefer to ask ahead of time. Emergencies happen, and I certainly don't want to shame or put a bias on emergencies. But we're talking in terms of those little crises that pops up that aren't time sensitive, uh, that feel like a big deal in the moment, but through time, it's just a matter of learning how to navigate those pitfalls as they pop up. Um, those are the things that I'm addressing. So, trust is built when both parties feel safe to engage in that connection. If you pick up the phone, you want to be able to trust the consistency of the intention of that phone conversation. And if I ask more of you than you're prepared to give at that time, that's going to break trust and it's not going to be consistent. And you're probably less likely going to pick up the phone next time if I kind of bombard you out of nowhere with a problem without asking your consent first. Uh, so it's important to use that shared time as you both agreed to. Like, could you imagine, like, if I invited you over for dinner? We'll use some financial analogies here. Imagine if I invited you over for dinner and I said, hey, we're going to play a game and we're going to have Chick-fil-A and it's going to be a great night. And you say, that sounds fabulous. I'd love to play a game and to eat Chick-fil-A. And you come over to my house, and at the last minute, without your consent, I say, no, we're not going to play a game anymore. We're going to watch a movie and I want to order out to a fancy steak restaurant. And maybe even I pause the movie and I start talking about my problems. You don't have the budget for that. You didn't, maybe that's not a level of financial resources that you could commit to at this time. You agreed to, a chicken meal from Chick-fil-A and not a steak dinner from, $100 steak dinner from a fancy steakhouse. Like, that's not what you agreed to. So that breaks trust. The agreement isn't being upheld. We discussed this ahead of time, and now I'm changing the dynamic, and that breaks trust. So when you make plans, it's important to uphold the agreement that you both agreed to. That being said, flexibility can happen. Uh, but that's with informed consent when both parties agree or communication is upheld to adjust as needed as things pop up. Now, the other part, the emotional side of that, so we have the financial side of the chicken dinner versus the steak dinner. The emotional side of it is, let's say I invited you over for the game or the movie, and instead I pause it and just talk about my problems, or I talk about politics, or I talk about things that you didn't agree to talk about. Um, and that's now asking more of you than you agreed to give. That's where emotional boundaries comes in. So we have the financial boundary side. I agreed to spend this much on a meal. The emotional side is I agreed to expend this much emotional capacity for this interaction, and more than I agreed to give is being asked of me. And that goes back to flexibility. If both people are informed and they consent to that type of interaction, that can be okay. But when one party is asking more than the other agreed to, that's where trust is broken. So think of friendship in terms of agreements. Do we both agree? Do we both consent? And we honor where the other person maybe just doesn't have the budget or capacity for it. I'm not going to shame someone. If I want $100 steak dinner and they're on a McDonald's value meal budget, I would be a horrible friend to shame them for not being able to afford $100, a very frivolous $100 steak dinner, right? Like I would be a bad friend doing that. So it's important that we align emotional budgets just as much as we are aware of financial budgets. Uh, some of us work emotionally taxing jobs. Um, Regulation, nervous system, emotional capacity. Maybe we deal with difficult people. Maybe people that we're related to are difficult. Maybe we just spent an hour in traffic. Maybe it's not even people that we're related to. Like it could just be outside, right? Like we all have an emotional budget of what our capacity is. And when we're tasked with more than we're prepared to give, that's where resentment creeps up. And as we touched on last episode, think of how your body and your nervous system will tell you who's good to be around, and the people that, maybe the pillars and priorities don't align. Uh, and if I agreed to a level of emotional intimacy and it's not upheld, and I'm being asked to provide more emotional labor than I agreed to, that's going to lead to anger and resentment. I'm going to feel violated. Um, no more than I would feel violated if someone slid over the receipt for their $100 steak dinner that I didn't agree to pay for. Same same feeling. Emotional labor, emotional boundaries, emotional budget. Um, Everything breaks down to agreements in friendship. And in a balanced, meaningful, intentional, caring, compassionate relationship, both parties are considered and what their capacity is. Um, and yeah, so just have a think on that. Uh, Another question to ask yourself: why am I sharing this? Right? Like, I've done this before where in my early years, as I'm learning about emotional boundaries, as I'm sharing something and I'm thinking like, why am I sharing this? Brene Brown refers to this as an emotional yeah, vulnerable hangover. Maybe we're sharing something and, I just think back to that moment of like, why am I sharing this right now? Like, it doesn't need to be said, or What's the purpose of me sharing this? Like, so think about like, why am I sharing this? What's the purpose of this? And that goes back to the agreement between the two people. Like, what are we using this space for between us? This shared space. How is it relevant to the topic? Is this going to benefit? You know, there have been times where I've shared difficult things that I've navigated through to for others to benefit from and to learn from, either the pitfalls, what's the counterbalance? Uh, the things that went right, the successes and the pitfalls of my experience, and things that went successfully and things that I failed miserably at for them to learn from my mistakes. Um, and it's my responsibility to be aware of the words that I use. Why am I sharing this? How am I using this space? And the space is only as safe as I make it. So, am I contributing to a safe space? Am I honoring the other person's autonomy? Um, am I asking more than the other person is willing to give? And why am I sharing this? Am I okay? Uh, just check in with yourself. Like, am I okay giving away this level of emotional intimacy? Or should I maybe wait a little longer to see if this person is going to be responsible with this information? Because not everyone is going to be responsible with your emotional vulnerability. Uh, yeah. So friendship comes down to building agreements with each other. I think that's the heart and soul of this video is flexibility can happen. Emotional things can be shared. There can be emotional vulnerability that pops up when both parties consent to it. Problems can be shared so long as both parties consent to it. But if someone has voiced, when the purpose of that space is for fun, for adventure, if I join a supper club or if I'm part of a game club and that space now shifts to being used for something else that I didn't consent to, um, it breaks trust. It's friendship all boils down to agreements and informed consent. So just some things to think about. And I'm curious to hear what other people, what their insights are, whether they, what their experiences are, how they could benefit from this insight. Is this something new? Is this old information? Is this new information? Um, but this is just through my experience of trying to navigate friendships as an adult. And yeah. So thanks for joining me on this episode. Next episode, we go to the beach.